Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are going to be discussing in this video the elephant in the village of the blind. So let's get started. In the last video, when we talked about how to analyze a short story, I showed you this photo. It said, this is true, but the cylinder is actually what is the truth. And so we want to talk about that just a little bit with the elephant in the village of the blind. And to do that, I think it's really interesting just to go through our same list here. And this is the same list that I try to go through for all of our short stories. Of course, the title in this one is The Elephant in the Village of the Blind. The setting, you can always go back and look. It says it's a village high in the mountains, right? It doesn't say where specifically, it doesn't say when specifically. And so it makes this a very approachable sort of concept. It's just a village somewhere in the mountains, right? Where everyone was born blind. And so that is your setting, and that makes it very ambiguous, something that we can all imagine ourselves visiting, right? I think it makes it to where we can access the idea a little bit more easily when it is a setting that is not quite so specific. If it were a mountain in the Himalayas, right? We might not be able to go there. But if it's the Smoky Mountains, hey, we might make it. So it is worth noting that when your setting is very general, it makes it much more, hey, I could do that. All right, let's talk real quick about the characters. We have a few characters in this story. You have everybody that is in the village, all the villagers, right? And they're all blind. Those are characters, okay? And you can go through and list them all. You have the elders of the village. You have a young girl that is specifically listed, but for now, we'll talk about them all as villagers. Then you have also the merchant, right? You have the merchant that comes in, a traveler here that is saying, I'm here to sell some wares, but I'm here on an elephant. They've never encountered an elephant. So the traveler is also a character. All right. And finally, guess what? That elephant is a character. All right. Now, this elephant, he is just an elephant. That's really all he is. He's just standing there saying, I'm an elephant. Okay, and he's not bothering anybody, but he's letting all these villagers touch all over him and pet him and everything. He's an elephant, but he is a character because he is a being that pushes the momentum of the story forward, and that's what a character is. Okay, so we can talk about the different characters here, but I think it's worth noting you have at least three groups here. You have the villagers, the merchant, and the elephant. Don't ignore characters, big or small, they are all important. All right. Next, we're going to talk through the plot very quickly. Remember, we talked about Freytag's pyramid. You have what's starting, what's normal. What's normal for these people is, hey, they're a village, right? Then what's the inciting incident? A traveler arrives with an elephant and many stories to tell. Um, and then everybody's touching on the elephant, and they all declare that it's a different thing because, again, these are blind people. They can only see what is actually right in front of them. They can't see around the whole thing. So all they can get is a glimpse of what is right physically in front of them. So one says it's talking about the ear. It's a soft but flexible like a leather fan. One says it's a rough, hairy pillar, which I think is hilarious for whatever reason. A hairy pillar is a funny concept to me. Um, one says it's a cool, smooth staff. One says it's a French rope, a water pipe. And then pretty soon everybody's looking at each other. Well, not looking because they're blind, sorry. But everybody is talking to one another and saying, what? How could I am feeling this? And it's definitely a hairy pillar. There is no possible way that this is a rope. Are you kidding me? And so they start to argue and they start to think and question their peers and wondering, why aren't you feeling the same thing that I'm feeling? And eventually, all right, at the high point, everybody's fighting, but the high point, the climax of this, and also the resolution, is the moment when someone says, wait a second, maybe an elephant is all of these things. Maybe it's bigger than what we can see right in front of us with our hands. Um, so that's kind of where this comes from. So it's worth noting there's a lot happening in this story, even though it is a very short story. I think it's noting that that we, right, when we're tackling something that is foreign or unknown to us, we become very much like those blind villagers. Okay. And it says at the bottom, everyone can recognize themselves in this story, right? We become the blind villager because we're trying to tackle this unknown, huge, monumentous problem or task or story or whatever it is that we're dealing with. And we can only see it from our own perspective, right? We can only see it from our own perspective. And so, if I've never been an oil field worker, I can't see it from the perspective of an oil field worker. I would never think about it being a pipe, probably. I would call it a water hose. So, very different experiences shape the way we see the world, right? And that's what this is talking about. And the other part of this is knowing that if we all work together, we'll get the bigger picture. We'll learn from each other and understand a lot better about what we're doing if we're all working together and talking to one another and not fighting and accusing and, all of those things. All right. And I love this question at the end. Who is the merchant? Well, who brought the elephant? For us in college, right? Who brings the elephant? Well, that's going to be your professors. We give you this elephant. We give you a short story to talk about. We give you a problem to solve. We give you a concept to think about. We give you a task to complete. Um, and it becomes the elephant, right? That task becomes the elephant. And then you guys, the students, you become responsible for figuring out what that elephant actually is. And I love to point out the merchant does not, right? He brings the elephant, but he does not solve their problem. He doesn't correct them. He never once corrects them and tells them, no, it's not a fringe rope. No, it's not a tusk. He waits for them to find the answers, and they figure it out a lot better and a lot more profoundly when they talk to each other. And I think that's worth noting. All right. You can also go through, we talked about the plot, you can talk about the theme. I think we actually just talked about the theme, talking about finding what is actually truth as opposed to what is true and what is true, right? Point of view. Okay, let's talk about point of view. Is this story written in first person? No, it's not using I, me, and my. Is it written in second person? No, it's not talking directly to the reader. It's not saying you and we and us. All right. So it's obviously in third person. Now, third person, you remember you'll have four options. Okay. Objective point of view is when only the things, the actions, and what people say is available to us. Is that what's happening here? Probably. Can I see inside of anyone's head? Nope. I don't see inside anyone's head. They're not talking, they're not saying, here's what this one thought and here's what this one thought. They're saying, here's what this one said, what this one did. And so I would argue that for that reason, this is objective point of view. Okay, we're not seeing inside of anyone's head. And that's the easiest way to get through process of an elimination for your third person point of view. Start with asking yourself, can I see inside anyone's head? If the answer is no, your first answer is going to be objective point of view. If we can see inside someone's head, the options are, we can talk about point of view, and the options for point of view are limited omniscient, impartially omniscient, and editorially omniscient, if you remember. So you could always go back and look at our how to analyze a short story video and remember what those are. But for now, we'll call this one objective point of view. All right, finally, we'll talk through symbols. There are some symbols happening here, the leather fan, the rope, and those kind of things. You can talk through them and think about them on your own. Personally, I tend to think, well, the elephant becomes symbolic of the problems that we face. The villagers become symbolic of us trying to figure out those problems, right? And the merchant becomes the symbol of someone who is trying to help us. But that's not necessarily, you don't have to talk about them in the terms of symbols either. They're just characters. All right, irony. I I don't particularly see irony in this story, but if you do, I'm all for it. All right, and you can tell me how and where and why. Foreshadowing. This story is so short. We don't really need the foreshadowing, and it doesn't really happen here. But again, if you find it, tell me how. I'm happy to entertain that idea. All right, that's all I have for the elephant in the village of the blind. I thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next video.